Now that we all had a chance to reflect on everything we've seen and E3 2018 has turned into history, it's time to take a step back and evaluate the showing in its entirety. E3 is every gamer's Christmas, and this year was no exception. In an attempt to summarize my overall impressions, I decided to award the worst and best of this year's E3. As was to be expected, selecting the greatest victories and most devastating losses from this year's E3 proved to be extremely difficult if you have such a vast offer of catastrophic failures and impressive achievements to choose from. It should go without saying that every award you're about to see is based on my opinion. I'm sure each and every one of you entered E3 2018 with your own expectations. You compiled a personal wish list in your head. Naturally, your personal expectations regarding the press conferences and games you were hoping to see don't necessarily match with my own. Whether you regard a certain game reveal or press conference as a success or disappointment depends on your expectations leading up to E3. So don't be infuriated or indignant if my personal choices don't match yours. That being said, here are my E3 2018 awards. Please enjoy.
Jesus Christ.
Let us start with a big one. Which of the 7 major contestants delivered the best press conference? Devolver Digital is out of the running since their conference tends to be satire first and press conference secondly. Doesn't change the fact that it was fucking hilarious though. And I'm sure I don't have to explain why the PC gaming show is utterly irrelevant. Unfortunately, the vast majority of press conferences were lacking proper surprises, mostly revolving around games we already knew existed just in more detail. As far as I'm concerned, it all comes down to either Sony or Microsoft. Let me explain why only these two made it to the final round by checking off each conference individually. EA and Square Enix wasted everyone's time by deciding to host press conferences despite the fact that none were needed. For some inexplicable reason, Square Enix seemingly was convinced that this year represented the perfect opportunity to return to E3. Even though they had trouble to fill a half-hour showcase. A half-hour showcase which felt completely redundant, since the vast majority of games was already revealed during Microsoft's press conference. So Square Enix definitely wins the award for the most unnecessary E3 showcase. But I'm not awarding the most unnecessary conference. No, I'm awarding the absolute worst conference. Whereas Square Enix's presentation may have been redundant, at least it valued our precious time by only being half an hour long. Let me put it this way. Square Enix conference was disappointing but brief, whereas EA's conference was disappointing and unreasonably long. I'd even go a step further and say EA's shit show was more than just disappointing and outrageously drawn out. It was borderline offensive at times. EA is always good for a surprise, I guess.
Payback. If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback,
We get it. Incredible.
Hey, I never said good surprise. More like "Oh my god, EA, please stop, I can't take it, stop being so EA" surprise. Pointing out every single moment of boredom or cringe would take longer than the actual press conference, so let me boil it down to two moments in particular. For starters, it's safe to say demoing a Command & Conquer mobile game for an excruciating 10 minutes can be a real mood killer. Secondly, after carelessly destroying the Mass Effect franchise, killing Visceral Games and consequently Amy Hennig's highly anticipated Star Wars action-adventure, and last but not least, being involved in one of the biggest scandals of recent video game history due to Battlefront's completely broken progression system thanks to EA's predatory business practices, and doing all of this in less than a year, Andrew Wilson had the audacity to sugarcoat the unacceptable behavior of his company with an insincere PR speech, trying to convince us that EA has learned its lesson and cares about gamers. I already made the following joke, but fuck it, J. Jonah Jameson's dirty laugh still is the most appropriate response.
And what I can say about all of those teams, and what I can say about us, is that we are always trying to learn and listen and strive to be better. And so, as you look at the 10 experiences that you're going to see today, and as you play games this week, there's some things we hope come through. First, that at the very core is choice. Is that you as players get to choose how you play, what you play, when you play, and what devices you play on. That in making those choices, you feel you are treated fairly. That no one is given an unfair advantage or disadvantage for how they choose to play.
You serious?
EA seems keen to hold on to the title Worst E3 Press Conference, and until now it has done a marvelous job to defend said title for several years in a row. Unsurprisingly, history repeats itself. The award for the worst E3 press conference goes to the defending champion, Electronic Arts. Good job, guys. So EA and Square Enix are out, but I'm sure you still want to know why Bethesda, Ubisoft and Nintendo didn't make the final cut either. All of them suffered from a severe lack of exciting surprises. Nintendo focused on Smash and their release schedule for 2018. Metroid Prime 4 or a new mainline Pokémon game were absent, denying Nintendo fans a glimpse into the future. The meteoric success of the Switch is strongly tied to Nintendo's exclusive output. As I already mentioned in my E3 reaction video, I really enjoy Ubisoft's developer-focused press conference approach. Letting developers showcase the games they've been working on lends a more personal note to the showcase. Regardless, it was the first Ubisoft press conference in a long while devoid of a one more thing moment. Usually Ubisoft announces a new IP or brings back a famous franchise at the end of its showcase. Obviously, we all expected the glorious return of Splinter Cell. As for Bethesda, I think people tend to rate the conference more positive than it actually was. In direct comparison to Ubisoft, Bethesda's conference at least featured a couple of new announcements. As a massive fan of the Doom reboot, Doom Eternal definitely was a huge highlight. However, the online-only component of Bethesda's marquee title, Fallout 76, left a sour taste for many die-hard Fallout fans. Whether you like the idea of an MMO Fallout or not is highly subjective, of course, but I think it's safe to say that the fanbase is split over Fallout 76, whereas the announcement of Fallout 4 was met with universal approval. What made Bethesda's conference even stranger were the announcements of Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. For many, this represented an undisputable highlight of E3. I'm afraid I have to disagree. The existence of these games is indeed exciting. However, they were clearly shown to reinforce an otherwise decent press conference. Take Starfield and Elder Scrolls away and you end up with a good but also far from stellar showcase. days. As Todd Howard pointed out during the announcement, these games are so incredibly far off that I seriously have to ask myself why they decided to announce them so early in the first place. We all knew that Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 were in development. Have we learned anything more substantial after Bethesda's conference? Not really. All we got were 2 brief CG trailers, basically showing absolutely nothing apart from a title. If Starfield is a next generation game, just imagine how distant the Elder Scrolls 6 still is. We are talking 2023 at the earliest. So no, I wasn't impressed by the rushed announcements of Starfield and Elder Scrolls. I'm eagerly looking forward to both, but the reveal was questionable. This leaves us with Sony and Microsoft. This year it proved to be incredibly difficult to pick a clear winner. In order to implement a certain degree of objectivity, I think it's reasonable to evaluate the conferences of Sony and Microsoft based on 2 major criteria. Number 1, presentation, meaning the overall execution of the press conference, including pacing, showmanship, the number and relevance of showcased games, and entertainment value. And number 2, quantity and quality of exclusive games. Since Microsoft and Sony are both hardware manufacturers, it's of crucial importance to convince the audience that their particular platform offers the best games imaginable. Since the beginning of this console generation, Sony tends to dominate E3 with fantastic press conferences, featuring the greatest amount of high-caliber exclusives, surprises, and showmanship. However, one reason why Sony's 2016 conference was so amazing had to do with the fact that they decided to give their fanbase a roadmap of the PS4 exclusive lineup. Even games like Death Stranding, which at this point in time were still part of a very distant future, received a proper reveal. Since E3 2016, Sony's press conferences are lacking surprises, given the fact that by now we know exactly what each Sony first-party studio is working on. Apart from the reveal of Remedy's new game Control, the Resident Evil 2 remake, and Nioh 2, Sony's conference revolved around 4 marquee exclusive titles: Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, and Spider-Man. Each game received an extensive gameplay demo. Apparently, Sony's major goal this E3 was to convince PS4 owners that the last major exclusive titles the PS4 is probably going to get are all of the highest possible quality. The games they showed all looked amazing. On the other hand, the actual press conference was a disaster, including what felt like a 15-minute commercial break. In many ways, Microsoft's conference was the exact opposite. The presentation was fantastic. Almost every major third-party reveal people were hoping for, regardless if we are talking about Shadows Die Twice, Devil May Cry 5 or Cyberpunk 2077, was featured during Microsoft's greatly paced showcase. Having said that, the conference didn't do a whole lot to improve the catastrophic exclusive portfolio of the Xbox One. Yet again, not one single new IP was announced. Instead, Microsoft doubled down on the holy trinity of Halo, Gears, and Forza. In short, Microsoft clearly had the better presentation, but Sony's exclusive games easily outweigh the boring lineup of Microsoft. I guess you could make good arguments for both conferences. However, credit where credit is due. Microsoft gave the best possible press conference in light of the current circumstances. In my opinion, Microsoft deserves the slight edge over Sony this year. By and large, Microsoft had to reaffirm consumers that the future of Xbox looks bright and that they are committed to improving their exclusive lineup. For Microsoft, E3 2018 was all about laying the groundwork for a reinvigorated Xbox brand once the next console generation hits the market. Congratulations, Microsoft! This clearly was the best Xbox conference since 360 days, which is why the award for the best E3 conference goes to Microsoft. Moving on to the next award, the biggest surprise. Unfortunately, the major flaw of this year's E3 was the distinct lack of surprises. In fact, what almost all press conferences had in common was to focus on more of the same instead of unexpected new IPs. I could still find a few surprising moments though. Here are the nominees. Number 1. The Resident Evil 2 remake is not only real, it's coming next January. Number 2. The Elder Scrolls 6 gets announced 6 years in advance. Number 3. The shadow drop of Unravel 2. Number 4. Microsoft already confirms a new console is in the works. Number 5. Microsoft adds 5 studios to its first-party network. Number 6. Fox McCloud comes to Starlink. And the award goes to number 5. We all knew Microsoft had to address the severe lack of meaningful exclusive content. I thought in a best case scenario, Microsoft would announce the acquisition of 2 new studios. The fact they just added 5 developers to their first-party network, one of which is Ninja Theory, is something I really didn't see coming. The next award is concerned with the biggest letdown of E3 2018. Well, there was a whole lot to choose from this year. Here are the most notable letdowns. Number 1. Respawn's Star Wars game receives an unsatisfying announcement. Number 2. The entire Square Enix press conference. EA doesn't really count because we all knew it would turn out to be a giant disaster. Number 3. Announcing a Command & Conquer mobile game instead of a proper mainline title. Number 4. No Metroid Prime. Number 5. This one is very personal. No Bloodborne 2 announcement. Shadows Die Twice looks fantastic, but hey, what do you want me to say? Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. Number 6. No Skate 4. Skate 4 could have been EA's moment of redemption. The only problem is, EA doesn't care. Number 7. Microsoft basically admitting that they lost this console generation. If you read between the lines, their entire conference revolved around the future of Xbox, not the present. Number 8. Rocksteady's rumored Superman game was completely absent. Number 9. No new Splinter Cell. Number 10. Major shortage of surprises. That's quite a substantial list of disappointments. Because I already uttered my main problem concerning this year's E3, I can only hand this award to number 10, since it perfectly summarizes the underwhelming feeling which defined E3 2018. And finally, the probably most important award of this entire video: Game of the Show. I did not have the heart to boil this award down to one game. We saw breathtaking games aplenty, which is why this award consists of 2 categories: Best Trailer and Best Gameplay Demo. CGI trailers are disqualified, it has to be at least in-engine. Again, what follows is very subjective, so don't lose your mind when your personal favorite didn't make the cut. For example, I don't really care about Halo or Kingdom Hearts. I'm not saying these games had bad trailers, I'm just not interested enough, that's all. The nominees for the best trailer are: Number 1. Devil May Cry 5. Number 2. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Number 3. Control. Number 4. Cyberpunk 2077. Number 5. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, or however you pronounce Sekiro, Sekiro? Please help me out, Japanese people, I have no idea. To be honest, it was a close race between Shadows Die Twice and Cyberpunk. I decided to let fate decide and tossed a coin. The award goes to Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, we didn't get any gameplay and it was only in-engine. However, after 5 years of total silence, it's so satisfying to know that CD Projekt Red is likely to release the next open world milestone in the coming years. I hope I don't need to tell you why I'm just as excited about Shadows Die Twice. It's a From Software game. Bloodborne and Dark Souls belong to my all-time favorite games, so naturally I can't wait to get my hands on FromSoft's new title. Moving on, here are the nominees for the last award, the Best Gameplay Demo. Number 1, Super Smash Bros. Number 2, Spider-Man. Number 3, Death Stranding. Number 4, Ghost of Tsushima. Number 5, The Last of Us Part 2. You probably noticed that 4 of those are PS4 exclusives, and I'm super stoked for each and every one, which makes it insanely difficult to choose. For me it comes down to Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2. Smash looks great, but PlayStation exclusives tend to be right up my alley. The reason why Spider-Man didn't make it, despite having a fantastic gameplay demo, is due to the fact that we already got a major gameplay reveal at last year's E3. And Death Stranding, as was to be expected, is just such a bizarre and mysterious game that even after seeing gameplay for the first time, I still have almost no idea what is going on. And you know what? I'm fine with that. Ghost of Tsushima looked absolutely phenomenal. The graphical fidelity and art direction is among the best I've ever seen. What made me even more excited about the game is the fact that it seemingly features no fantasy elements and no totally insane combat abilities. It's so refreshing to see a game whose primary intention is to let us relive a moment in Japanese history and to focus on fairly grounded and authentic sword gameplay. It was insanely close, but the award for the best gameplay demo goes to The Last of Us Part 2. As many of you know, The Last of Us has a special place in my heart, and finally witnessing the first major gameplay reveal to the successor of one of my all-time favorite games was a very special moment. My expectations were sky high, which makes it even more impressive that Naughty Dog managed to leave me speechless. I won't go into detail as to why this gameplay demo is so promising, because I'm currently working on a video that tries to answer this exact question. There you have it, my E3 2018 awards. As I said earlier, this E3 suffered from a clear lack of noteworthy surprises, which is a shame since surprising announcements are the lifeblood of E3. Apparently, Microsoft and Sony are currently in a holding position, meaning that they are already thinking ahead and intentionally hold back big announcements to win over consumers once the next console generation gets officially announced, which, judging by Phil Spencer's statements, should be sooner than later. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please leave behind a like and subscribe to my channel, as it would help me immensely. As always, I'd like to know what you guys think. What were your greatest disappointments, surprising moments and favorite games? Feel free to tell me in the comment section below.